Hello, Dr. Palmer and Stephanie. I am going to give it another attempt as I did video record last week and really enjoyed doing it. However, I did have problems with uploading and I certainly apologize for that. Having said that, I'm really excited to go over Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, which were homework for week 3 of research methods. And we first explored Chapter 6. And in this, we have a question where I have to assume I'm a manufacturer of a small kitchen electric company. And we have to, as a team, determine if these innovative designs, these unusual shapes and colors can transition successfully into the US market as they've originally been intended for the European market. And so the first question we really do have to figure out is, will this transition successfully into the US market? And we have to look at the qualitative research methods that could be used and recommended as we proceed. So first we have to acknowledge and understand, and when we do research in international business and we look at globalization, global markets, we know, for example, that the US market is very different than the European market. And when I was tasked to do this assignment, I immediately thought of IKEA. Now, I did some research and I realized that there's no IKEA in Oklahoma. But when I did that research, and I'll show you in the video or the computer part that I have, that the closest IKEAs to Oklahoma are actually in Dallas, Texas. But I immediately thought of IKEA because we have many of them here in New York City. The IKEAs came to New York, or actually came to the United States in 1985, and IKEA, as you know, is a Swedish company that was founded in 1943, and in 2008, was declared the largest manufacturer of goods. But why I actually thought of IKEA is the fact that their products are different. They're non-traditional. They are strictly European. And when they came to the US market, there were some challenges. And the first challenge was, and I don't know if you know this, but mattress sizes, for example, in sheets that you put onto your beds are all different sizes, unique to European sizes. So this was something very familiar to IKEA, and when they entered the US market, they had to do some qualitative research and such. And so let me just show you what I have here, and I'm going to try to get the glare down. But again, these are the distribution locations of every IKEA that's in the United States. And what's really interesting here to note is that you will see that they are in primary targeted city centers throughout the United States. And it has worked extremely well, mostly populated on the West Coast and the East Coast. So again, in doing research, it made sense to look at IKEA. And so for doing this, I actually looked up some case studies on IKEA, and I found one from the Journal of Purchasing and Supply Management, which is called an interactive approach to global sourcing, a case study of IKEA, which came out in March of 2012. And basically what they said is not only do you have to see if it's right for the market, but you also have to look at different variables such as global sourcing and whether or not products can come to the United States as easily as they can come from Europe. And so in all these case studies that I looked at about 5 case studies for IKEA. They primarily used interviews for the process of determining whether or not entering into the US market would be a wise and prudent choice. Focus groups also would be a really good idea. I don't know if you've ever seen those Mucinex commercials, which is cold formula, but many years ago I was in a focus group for Mucinex and determining whether or not their campaign of having a commercial start in black and white and transition to color would be good for the market. And while I said it wasn't a good idea, they went with it anyways. Very interesting. But again, in determining whether or not entering the market would be a wise decision, doing interviews, conducting interviews, talking to potential customers, talking to the new demographic would be a good idea, with the follow-up of course, the possibility of a focus group. Now for Chapter 7, I really enjoyed this question as well because it talked about the Kindle and when the Kindle came out and how it did in fact receive the Oprah factor. If you're on Oprah, you're golden, even if it's 15 seconds, 20 seconds. And the Kindle had this opportunity. So when you do look at the Sony competitor, it does make sense in trying to understand why the Kindle took off. I know other products have taken off with Oprah as well and have been really successful. The question for Chapter 7, however, is what observation research might have been used in the redesign of the Kindle. And as described in the question, there was problems and issues and concerns with the button placement as well as the page turn speed. So of course, they were looking at a way to collect primary data through observation means. And so the possible choices would have been naturalistic observation, participant observation, and controlled observation. When I thought about the Kindle and the problems that they had, especially with the button placement and other parts of the Kindle not necessarily being intuitive, I naturally thought of my children, because children, digital natives, as they're considered, instinctively know how to operate cell phones and Kindles and all those things. So while, I am sure the Kindle folks used the naturalistic participant and or controlled observation, I can only imagine what their populations could have been or should have been. And I do specifically think of a naturalistic observation, for example, in a kindergarten room where a researcher stands on the side and observes as kindergartners learn or figure out how to navigate and push specific buttons. I also thought from a distance, from naturalistic observation, they could see if, they wanted to target an older population, they could go and they could observe in a high school, in a nursing home, and after school programs. I could also see, again, focus groups, participant observation as well, where they observe and they participate in that group behavior. And finally, controlled observation. I don't know if they necessarily would have done this, but again, that's more conducive to a lab setting. But in reflection, when looking at this question, I certainly think that those were the three main ways in which they could have achieved that goal of observing individuals to move forward and successfully produce the Kindle Fire, which I believe in the chapter said 2009. So thank you. I really hope I can upload this in time, and yeah, have a good week. Thank you.